I just want to do God's will.
The kind of revolution that the world needs is a Christian revolution.
If you want a miracle, you've got to expect it to happen.
You are the recipients of God's grace and God's blessings, and you rejoice in that reality.
Welcome to Life Today Live. I'm Randy Robinson, and I have the best opening theme music in all of Christian podcasting, I would say. And if you don't believe me, I will ask my guests today because they're both musicians. But that's not the topic. I am also a fortunate man. I have been married almost 34 years now, and it was like 36, 37 years ago that I walked into a room in college and saw the girl and across the room and thought I am going to marry her, and I dated her, and we married. We had 4 children. We've had bliss. And by now you probably know that I'm not quite telling you the entire truth because though I have been married almost 34 years and do have 4 children and a wonderful wife, it's a journey. It's a journey that you go on together, and that's okay. But, you know, as the great musical poet Howard Jones said, we all want that everlasting love. Can we find it? How do we get there? How do we become those old people that just sit in the corner and just kind of nod and smile at the rest of the world? Well, we're going to talk about that today, and you're going to hear a love story, which you don't often hear on Life Today Live. My guests are 2 wonderful people. Rebecca St. James, a name you probably know, and Cubbie Fink, whom you may not know, but if you're into good music, you'll know a band that he was in. They have a book out now. It is called Lasting Ever. Play on the everlasting, obviously, and they tell their story, and they're going to share it with you today. So I'm glad that you're here. Hope you'll hit that share button and let someone else in on the fun. Rebecca and Cubbie, great to see you guys. Welcome to Life Today Live.
Thank you, Randy. We're so happy to be with you.
So I love that you quoted Howard Jones in that intro.
Yeah,
nice intro.
Big fan for sure.
I work in him when I can.
Amazing.
So half my audience is like Googling, who is Howard Jones? Okay. How long have you guys been married now?
14 years in April.
Yep.
14 years. All right. So 10 of the best years of your lives, I'm sure.
Amen.
Definitely.
A lot of people know, obviously, Rebecca, your music. For those of you who don't know, Cubbie was a founding member of a band called Foster the People, which I actually used to part of my playlist and still rolls through from time to time. So it's good music.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And some of the music world, the touring world can be very tough on marriages, but you guys have a beautiful story. Who's going to start this love story and tell me how you guys started a little over 14 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Well, I can lead out a little bit if you want. Yeah, so we met actually in LA, and I was there still doing music at that time, doing a little bit of acting. And we met through a philosophy group, and it was this guy who had wanted to lay a foundation for theology through philosophy with young creatives in LA. And so he put together this philosophy group, and I met 2 of his best friends through that. And he was doing TV, a lot of TV and film at that time in LA, and was at a party and an event for the wrapping of the show. And he invited his 2 best friends, and I came along. And Cubbie, you should share what happened across that room, because he tells it well.
It was an interesting season because I was so busy on the show that I wasn't attending the philosophy group on a regular basis, which I had been for the couple years prior to that. But in the season that I was absent, I start hearing this name, Rebecca this, Rebecca that. She's so cool. She's the real deal. And then come to find out that it's Rebecca St. James, which I was familiar with the name, but ironically was not familiar with her music. I absolutely should have been. Grew up in a Christian home, grew up listening to Christian music. We had her albums in our house. I remember flipping through my dad's CD collection and seeing her picture, but for whatever reason, not taking that CD out and putting it in the CD player.
Which we think was good.
Yeah, I think in retrospect, I do believe it was some form of divine protection, because it protected that first encounter between her and I, that boy meets girl moment. And so anyways, I'm at this rap party. Don't really want to be there. I call my buddy, say, hey, come bail me out, come hang out with me. And they're like, sure, we'll be right up. And we're actually hanging out with Rebecca. So I said, great news, bring her along. And so they make their way up the hill, and I don't know, 20, 30 minutes later, I see the front door open of this house, and from across the room, definitely had one of those cinematic moments where the music faded and the murmur of the crowd dulled to a hush.
Connected.
Our eyes connect from across the room, and there was just something very authentic and real about that first encounter. And we made our way across the room and ended up in conversation for the next few hours, and
the rest is history.
I guess the rest is history.
Does that just like happen sometimes? Because I met my wife, and we actually went out fairly soon after that, but then we dated other people for a couple of years, and it was like I had to journey through the wilderness to find my promised land. Do you have any idea what it was that made you go, that's it?
I think we both had to probably journey through the wilderness before each other. I was in my early 30s at that point. He was in his late 20s. And so he had dated a lot. And I think we knew that we wanted to both wait for this person that God had for us. And I'd had a song about waiting for marriage and all of this. And so I'd been very public about that wait. But I think it was challenging for both of us. I think both of us had to come to a place of trusting God with this dream, and also acknowledging the reality that maybe it wouldn't happen. Maybe we wouldn't meet this person. Maybe there was no one out there for us. And, would we trust God even with dreams unfulfilled like that were that big? So I think the wilderness came before. And for me personally, I will never take for granted the fact that I'm married. It was such a long wait. It was challenging and lonely. And I tear up regularly at the fact that I'm living all my dreams right now. Like, my main dream of my life was to get married and have a family. And so even to write this book about our story and, how God brought us together and what happened separately in our lives in the lead up to meeting and then beyond, like, it feels very redemptive and really, really beautiful to see all that God has done. The dreams come true.
You mentioned something that I do have to ask about, and I know you write about it in the book. And you were identified with, is written the forward for book, this whole idea, this true love waits kind of movement, which I heard about it at the time. I don't remember exactly when it hit, but
probably late 90s. Yep.
Late 90s. Okay, so I was married already and didn't have children, so it was kind of like sideways to me. So I was familiar with it, but not like in it. But like that has been really trashed recently, and and I'm going, well, why did something happen? What do you look when you look back on that time and that message? What do you think?
It feels sad to me to see, I think, how it has been, to use the word that you said, kind of trashed that time in history and in the church, because I think that there was a lot of good there. I think some people maybe took that movement or had an experience with that movement that was legalistic and that was just about following rules, and it wasn't about living for God, and it wasn't about God's protection of us and God's best for us as written out in the Bible. And so I think a lot of people that do speak maybe badly publicly about it now had a negative experience, and our hearts hurt for them, like that they feel like it was a loss for them, is sad to us to hear. For us, and I think for many others in the movement, it was a good thing. It was something that encouraged us to live in attempt to live in this God-honoring way that probably all of us had already been committed to. I think for both Cubbie and I, when that movement came about, we were in our teens. Had already kind of made this commitment to want to honor God through honoring the opposite sex. So it was just encouraging something that was already there. And I think grace too is something that whenever I spoke about purity, it's something that I talked about, that none of us are doing this perfect. We're just seeking to honor God, and we all need the grace of God. It's not about this perfect thing, but it's about this intent to love God through our lives and honor the opposite sex as best as we can. And now we've got kids, 10, 6, and 4. And so we really realize we have to make sure that we know what we think about this issue, and I encourage other parents to know what they think about this issue, because it will be passed on to that next generation, and that's a really, really important thing. Yeah. And it was a holiness movement in a way. And I think there's a lot of good in that, encouraging holiness out of relationship, out of a love relationship with Jesus. This is a good thing.
Yeah, well, the reality is when you do sex the wrong way, it wrecks people, it wrecks lives, it wrecks relationships.
Right.
But when you do it God's way, it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
And that should be
100%.
the simple message,
The focus.
you know. And people
Yes,
that
that's
make
great,
it,
Randy.
people that make it legalistic, you know, the history of humanity is just
100%.
taking God's helpful instructions, like here's how to do life. I made it. I know how to do it best. And
100%.
making it into a prison, and that's just
Right.
that's just wrong. So I appreciate you having a good perspective on that.
Thank you.
Cubbie, I know Rebecca's living all her dreams. Are you living all of your dreams? Being married?
I absolutely am. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a healthy marriage model to me growing up. Had a mom and dad that loved each other and loved myself and my sister very well, and so just saw the value of family from a very early age, and saw the importance of family, and had dreams and aspirations of being married very early. Myself, I kind of assumed that I'd be married by early 20s, and obviously it didn't happen till late 20s, probably later than I would have anticipated, but it definitely was a dream of mine, and definitely, you know, the ideal that I was kind of holding out for. And like Rebecca said, I mean, there definitely came a point in the journey of waiting and searching and looking that I was starting to lose some hope and starting to question that, you know, that standard and that ideal that had been holding out for, and really had to come to a place of, you know, either throwing in the towel and compromising, or just being okay with not being married and not having that dream fulfilled. And it was a wrestle. And luckily enough, or miraculously enough, in the midst of LA, where it's very tough to find, you know, God-fearing, God-loving people, we found each other, and it is a absolute fulfillment of a dream for sure.
Worth the wait?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So, you mentioned the LA thing because, I mean, from knowing a lot of people in sort of show business, especially a touring business, which music obviously is, it can be very, very difficult on relationships. It seems like unless you just pack up and live on a bus and you're both happy with that, you know,
Right.
the distance and the schedule and all that kind of the demands can be a little crazy. Did you guys have to make any sacrifices to career, or did you decide or did you want to take a break from the road? How did the career and the marriage mesh?
Yeah, it actually worked out pretty seamlessly and really in a beautiful way. And in the sense that Rebecca was in a position in her career where she was edging off the road and slowing down, and really her desire was to be kind of done with music and be able to be a wife and eventually a mom. I mean, those were the dreams of her heart. So with that kind of on the horizon with us, with our developing relationship, she was very excited about that. And I was simultaneously in a position with my band where we were really starting to take off. And I remember having a conversation kind of almost apologetically, like, you've spent so much of your life on the road, and now I'm about to spend all of my life on the road. And is this going to work? And she said, absolutely, it's going to work, because I can come with you. I'm not going to be tied to my things anymore, and I'll be able to be there and support you. And
I loved it.
And just the understanding that she already had of that life on the road that you spoke of was just so, you know, such a beautiful gift for both of us, because it's not something she had to learn or be, you know,
weirded out by.
I mean, it was, I mean, despite the worlds, I mean, she was in Christian music, I was more in mainstream music. The similarities are very much there. And so she already had an understanding of the world, and we had to implement some things early on to kind of make sure that we weren't going too long without seeing each other, because she wasn't able to be on the road with me all the time. She was out a bunch, but she was still doing a bit of singing in those first couple of years. And so we instituted a kind of a 2-week policy where we wouldn't go longer than, or do our best to not go longer than 2 weeks without seeing each other, which I think was very foundational. I mean, it really helped kind of lay that foundation that we've really been able to carry through our marriage, and just, you know, putting an importance on staying connected as much as we can, because
doing it as a family,
doing it as a family, doing what we do together, and not just kind of living two separate lives. And because I mean, even today there's projects that we're not doing together, so it'd be easy to kind of just go separate ways, but our constant goal is to draw the family together. And yet even now with kids, it's let's do this as a family as much as possible.
Yeah. you know most of my Christian audience is going, 2 weeks? I've never been apart from 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And the older ones are going, that sounds great. No, I'm kidding. No, it's a joke, people. All right, lighten up.
Yes, totally.
Here's a question. 14 years, you probably hit that point where you realize a couple of things, like, I don't know about you, Cubbie, but I found out that, saying, well, that's not how my mom did things, doesn't help, right?
Doesn't work well.
Right? The leaving and cleaving for a reason.
Yes.
But also you find out that anything that you've had maybe buried, maybe obviously hidden in a dating relationship, issues, maybe some that you thought they'll go away once I get married, they don't.
Right.
You guys had to do any kind of digging in the dirt to, I'm going to quote all sorts of secular. You're going to dig in the dirt to find the places where you've been hurt.
Wow.
Yeah, you like that one?
He's bringing it. Yeah, I like that.
Have you had had to deal with any issues?
I mean, there's a lot that I feel like you just have to learn on the job. It's like, like with parenting, you can't just read all these parenting books and then ace it. You've actually got to learn. One of the things that I learned early on was having to ask for things. I think I just assumed this like romantic idea of marriage that, oh, he's the one for me. We're married now. He's just going to know everything that I want and anticipate this and know my needs and just instinctively just meet them. And I had to learn how to ask. And that takes humility. I mean, it takes this vulnerability, and so that was something early on that I definitely had to learn. I mean,
Rebecca,
yeah.
Have you figured out by now that when you ask a man, what are you thinking, and he says nothing, he means nothing?
We have had that exact same conversation, like 100%. And it's still slightly foreign to me, but I do believe him now. Yeah. What about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for both of us, I think the real season of digging happened in a season that we referred to in the book as our winter season. It was a season that was kind of brought on by a few different things. One, that there was a pretty painful parting of ways with the band for me, and right about that time we were starting to trying to expand our family, trying to get pregnant again, and Rebecca was dealing with some infertility issues and had a couple of miscarriages, and beyond that I was dealing with my mom, who was dying of a pretty painful disease, and it's just one of those seasons where it was blow after blow after blow. Yeah. And really kind of a forced pause because of the shift in career, and because of that, I think some stuff for both of us was starting to fester and come to the surface. And I know for me there was some pain that had been pretty buried, and even some memories that were completely blocked from my childhood, and just based on the pain of that season and just kind of the way that I was responding emotionally to it, it was proof enough that it was time to deal with some of these things. And so the digging that I did was more of an internal digging, and really started a journey with a counselor to kind of get to the core of some of these deeper painful issues and unlock some memories. And it was a journey that was not necessarily fun, but one that I'm absolutely grateful for, and grateful that I took the steps to walk down that path and ultimately meet Jesus in the midst of my pain and experience an incredible amount of healing. And really the motivation was to be the healthiest version of myself for my wife and for my children, to be the best husband I could be, and be the best father that I could be. And I knew that I was, because of that unresolved pain in my life, I was being withheld from being that best version that I could be. And still not perfect and still working, but the healing that I received through walking down that path was revolutionary. I'm definitely a new human because of it.
And I appreciate you saying that. And I ask that because in the book you do go into it. And by the way, the book is lasting ever. And if you really want to walk down that road with Cubbie and Rebecca, do pick up the book. It's available wherever you get books, but it'll bless you. Here's the thing I know about some of the situations you guys have been in. They can break a relationship and wreck a marriage, or you can actually walk through it and grow even closer.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
It tends to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who may be going through a tough time and they don't know how to make it bring them closer together or even survive the marriage because it seems to be just ripping them apart?
Mm-hmm. I mean, a couple things that come to mind, straight away when you ask that is probably get some support in the way of like mentoring or like somebody that can kind of journey with you and encourage you. I think knowing that you're not alone is really, really important. Yeah. I think, this definition of trauma being I'm alone without help. I've heard that definition of trauma. And so if you're already in a situation that feels somewhat traumatic, like in your marriage and things are off, to then feel like I don't have outside help kind of adds to that feeling of panic and fear. So finding somebody that can support you, I think trusting in the goodness of God that you've seen maybe in past times in your life, like come back to like, okay, how has God met me before? How has he proven himself faithful before? I can lean on him in this time too. And then something that we talk about in the book too is this idea of, we know about the 5 love languages, but I like to have this idea of there being a 6th love language of curiosity and actually pursuing your spouse in these hard times of where you kind of want to isolate. If you're hurt and you're wounded in your marriage, you kind of want to just pull away and retract in any of your heart from that person. But instead, with the power of God, moving towards them and asking questions and pursuing them and saying, let's talk about what's going on. I really want to hear your heart. I want to grow through this with you, and pursuing that curiosity. These are some of the things that I think in that hard time we're standing on or attempting to, not perfectly, but that definitely helped us during that hard time to get through. Yeah.
Now, you touched on, I think, one of the biggest, if not the biggest things as far as people's relationship with God goes, it's when bad things happen and we start to doubt, question, or even deny his basic goodness.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
And when even you don't feel like it, when you make that choice, because it is a choice to say, I'm going to anchor my life in that God is good. It keeps you from just blowing in circles and that ship running aground.
Yeah, it's so good.
So I really, that's such powerful truth. All right, let's talk about some of the good times. You have 3 kids now, is that right?
We do, yes. Thankful. 2 girls and a boy.
2 girls and a boy. How is life as a family? Is it everything you hoped it would be? Just less sleep?
It is. Yeah, I mean, and definitely in certain seasons there's less sleep, but it's so beautiful. We're up in New York this past weekend doing some media there, Fox and Good Morning America. It was a really sweet time, but we brought the kids because, again, this commitment to doing it together as a family and them being part of it, us being able to go, okay, this is where we're doing this interview and like, but, to be on this adventure together as a family. And I absolutely so regularly, I mean, probably every night, actually, when I put the kids to bed, I often just go into their rooms and just give a little kiss on the cheek. And I just feel so thankful that God has entrusted us, imperfect as we are, with these little human beings. And it's a big deal. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of responsibility, but it's alongside marriage, I think it's the most joyous part or thing that God has ever given us is this beauty of parenting.
Yeah.
I just feel so thankful, and that we get to do it together as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you sing to each other?
I think we sing to the kids. We don't really sing to each other. We sing to the kids.
It just feels like at the end of the interview, it's like at the end of a romantic film where y'all turn. And I don't know.
You might be onto something. Maybe you should do that.
I am curious about one thing, seriously though. So, I mean, is this just a love story, which is beautiful? And if that's all it is, it's worth the time, or is there something more that you want people to really kind of take away from this when they read your book?
Yeah, I think that the thing that was most impressed on my heart, even writing the final few pages of the book and kind of reflecting on it as a whole, was just how good God is. And I think that is the deepest desire for both of us, is for whoever ends up reading this book, for them to close it and just be so just encouraged that God is so good. And like you mentioned before, I think it's very easy for the enemy to cause us to doubt the goodness of God, especially when we're going through challenging times. And I think it would have been very easy for us to fill the pages of this book with all of the good times of our life. We've been able to do and experience a lot of fun things. But the reality is we really connect through our pain. I think the pain is what unifies us as humans. It's the thing that we all experience, and it was the thing that we felt called and compelled to share. And we wanted to be real and authentic about the pain that we've walked through, because it's through the pain that we've grown. It's now in retrospect being able to see the purpose in that pain and the value of that pain because of where it's brought us today. And it'd be fun to believe, or it'd be nice to believe, that we grow when times are good and times are easy, but we really don't. It's really through those valleys, through the challenges, through the hard times that we grow, and God was really able to shape and mold us into the people that he calls us to be. So that would be, and really to be an encouragement. I know there's a lot of people struggling in faith, in family, in relationships, and we would hope that the things that we've walked through and gotten to the other side of would be an encouragement that other people can do the same, and really continue to fight for their faith, fight for their families, and again, just be reminded about the goodness of God. It's like I can't even take credit for the stories that are on those pages, because it's just so clearly God in every word.
Yeah, I love it. All right. Are we going to hear more music from you guys? See more acting, movies, anything like that coming up?
Yes, on both. Cubbie's actively working on producing and directing new material, and I'm working on some new music too. So yes, you
Are
will.
you? Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. All right. So we can go to RebeccaSt.James.com for Rebecca's. How do people keep up with Cubbie? Is that
Probably
a little more
through
challenging at this
Instagram,
point. Yeah.
by Facebook as well. Yeah.
Not on any socials.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what's your handle on the socials?
Just Google. I mean, just on Instagram, Rebecca St. James, and Facebook as well. I've got my certified accounts, and that's the best way to reach us.
All right. Well, we'll be looking. I know you're busy with 3 kids at home. It's a handful, but I appreciate you taking the time to share with our audience, and even going all the way up and doing the Fox News thing. I know it was a hassle, but I think that's good that you did that.
Thank you.
I'm joking. It's always.
It was a joy. It's definitely
good.
a joy.
I'm glad. It's always funny to me though when I have somebody on the program and I'm like, oh, they were just on Fox News and Good Morning America. Like, oh well, but so no, but it's fabulous. I appreciate you guys sitting down. You and Rebecca. It's been a while, but we'll hope to see you guys again.
That'd be great. Tell your parents hi. Love them.
I will tell them.
Have great memories of being with them as well.
Look forward to more great things coming from you guys. The greatest being that lasting ever relationship. Faith, music, family, and being found by true love. That's the book that's available right now wherever you get books. Go get it, and maybe even give it to somebody. If they're wondering if they're ever going to find their true love, there's some encouragement right there for you. We appreciate you guys being here. We will see you next time again on Life Today Live.